Yes, Geordies, welcome back to another episode. And it feels like it's been a while, but it's only been a day. Sunday is the only day of the week I don't post, by the way. So if you want to indulge in Newcastle United content, make sure you are following. But what's with this weather? Benjamin Šeško is probably looking at Newcastle right now and thinking, F that. I'm not getting involved in that weather because it is absolutely pouring down the rain. This is a perfect day for football, in my opinion. I used to love playing in the rain. But anyways, let's get on the episode because we have got another wonderful episode. Well, hopefully a wonderful episode, because I'm going to try and give you my thoughts on this Benjamin Šeško situation. We're going to be looking at Benjamin Šeško and if that partnership with Yoane Wissa could work. It looks like Gonçalo Ramos has been lined up if Benjamin Šeško chooses Man United. So what is his style of play? So we're going to be looking at it all very briefly because I don't want to look into too much detail because I go into depth and then Newcastle just sign nobody and I'm just like, did I just waste my time there? But I hope you all enjoy the episode. I'm going to give it my best shot, and if you enjoy it, great. But Eddie Howe has been standing on business. Let's just say I absolutely love the comments from Eddie Howe. And let's look at those comments because I'm sure you as a Newcastle fan do as well. Eddie Howe made some comments on Alexander Isak. And one thing I will say is, do you know how much of a CUNT you have to be to make Eddie Howe act this way and say these words? So what he said was, you have to earn the right to train with us. We are Newcastle United. I love that. Just that little quote there. We are Newcastle United. We will make sure any player does that earns the right to train with the group. No player can expect to act poorly and train with the group as normal. Once again, guys, I absolutely love this from Eddie Howe because he is standing on business. He's sitting there thinking, there is no player bigger than the club. And this is exactly what I've been saying. If Alexander Isak wants to act this way, forget about him. Honestly, we can move on without him. We can build our squad. We can bring in another striker. I am absolutely not worried if Alexander Isak wants to leave because I only want players that want to play for the shirt. I only want players at the club that want to play for Newcastle United. Because let's just say Alexander Isak stays, right? Mentally, he's not going to be there. He might be looking like it physically, but mentally, he's not going to have the same desire and hunger as he did last season. And that's a problem because that rubs off on the team. And then the squad dynamics is all off. We really don't want to go into next season that way. So pretty much what I'm saying is Alexander Isak should feel privileged to play for Newcastle United. In fact, any player in the world should feel privileged to play for the club they're representing. It's not just about Newcastle United. I'm talking about general in all of football. Everybody should feel privileged to wear that badge. So Alexander Isak is no different. Let's just think what he's done. He's refused to turn up to pre-season. He's refused to play in any friendlies. He's pretty much down-tooled. He faked an injury so he didn't have to train. He then went to Spain without anybody at the club knowing for a little jolly up holiday. He's now back in training, but he can't expect us just to welcome him back with open arms. He's got some groveling to do. So what I'm saying is, if he doesn't want to be here, if he doesn't train hard, if he doesn't apologize to the fans, the players, the club, the staff, then he can shut the door on his way out. It's quite simple. Like it or not, I actually think Newcastle United and Eddie Howe have handled this Alexander Isak situation extremely well. But getting back to Benjamin Šeško, we all know that we've delivered our project to him. But what I do like about this is we're standing on business as a club. We're saying, look, you've got 24 hours. This was yesterday. So I'm expecting a decision by today. As it stands, at point of recording, he hasn't made a decision, but I've got no doubt before I've finished editing this video, you'll probably have a decision. What that decision will be, who knows? But look, at least we're not saying we're going to wait around forever because we need to start moving in this transfer window. We need to get bodies in, whether that be two strikers, midfielder, right centre-back. We need players in the door. So we can't wait around forever, Benjamin Šeško. If you want to take a couple of weeks to make a decision, I'm sorry, we're walking away and probably moving on. And that moving on looks like Gonçalo Ramos, if reports are to be believed. Now, I'm going to be honest, I can see pros and cons for signing for both Man United and Newcastle. Man United, because of the history, the stature of the club, even though they're not in a great place, Ruben Amorim will say, look, we've brought in Matthias Cunha, we've brought in Brian Mbeumo. He's going to create for you to score goals. You'll also earn more money at Man United, and that's huge. But you can also see Newcastle's project. We're on an upward trajectory. Man United are on a downwards. We can offer Champions League football. They can't. We can offer a manager that has proven throughout the years, throughout his time at the club, that he can improve players. We've turned £30 million players into £100 million players. We've turned £60 million players into £150 million players. We've turned Alexander Isak into the best striker in the world. So there generally is pros and cons cons about them both. So I understand he's thinking about them both. But from the outside looking in, it looks like he's waiting for Man United to make a bid. And that's me being brutally honest. But I want to hear your thoughts. Like, how do you feel about this Benjamin Šeško situation? Do you think we'll get a decision today? Do you think we'll get a decision tomorrow? I think it'll be in the next 24 hours. And that'll dictate where my next videos go. But I just wanted to look at Benjamin Šeško and Yoane Wissa, compare the two, because although when you visually look at them both, they're two completely different types of profiles, but they both bring similar styles. So let's look at Benjamin Šeško's statistics over the past 4 seasons at Salzburg and then Leipzig. And he generally has been scoring goals in comparison to his starts. His first season at Salzburg, 8 starts, 5 goals, 1 assist. Second season, 23 starts, 16 goals, 3 assists. RB Leipzig's first season, 17 starts, 14 goals, 2 assists. And then last season, 30 starts, 13 goals, 5 assists. Then if you look at Yoane Wissa, these are across last 4 seasons in the Premier League. 12 starts, 7 goals, 16 starts, 7 goals, 29 starts, 12 goals, then 34 starts, 19 goals, all of which non-penalties. But what I found interesting is that they both have a nice variation of right-footed goals, left-footed goals, and headed goals. Now, what I also find interesting, across the 4 seasons, they both finished with the same amount of assists, which was 11. Now, this is where the video really gets interesting, because when you look at Benjamin Šeško, he is the opposite on the eye test to Yoane Wissa. You stand them next to each other, one's 6'4", one's 5'9", one is quite powerful, strong, you can tell he's really athletic, whereas Wissa looks like you'd be nippy and nimble. That's the two difference between the two. So let's briefly touch upon Benjamin Šeško. So if we sign Benjamin Šeško, what type of striker is he? 6'4", explosive pace, directness, and a real hunger to score goals. Clinical finisher. He's a scorer of great goals. That's what I like to say about Benjamin Šeško. First time finishes, finesse finishes, powerful ball strikes, aerial presence. He's got the lot in his locker when it comes to inside that penalty area. Converts chances at a high rate. Needs little to no backlift to get shots off. He's an extraordinary ball striker. The way he connects with the ball is absolutely deadly. So when it comes to inside the box, he's got excellent box movement, intelligent blindside runs, holds explosive pace to run across his marker. He's got the lot in his locker. Many of these goals follow some kind of explosive movement, often bursts of pace just to get in front of his man. And then outside the box, he likes to stretch defenses, so he holds the pace to move off the shoulder and get in behind defenses. And his double movements are key to manipulate defenders. Now, there is a reason why I'm talking about this, but he can also lead transitions with his ball carrying. Now, what I've highlighted in red there, he's not a natural creator or a playmaker, so he would need some creativity from a number 10, wide areas, or a deep line passer. Now, when you look at Yoane Wissa, he's flexible across front 3. You can play him on the left in a 4-3-3 system, for example, but he's also a centre striker, and he has been partnered by Bryan Mbeumo at times last season. He's dynamic, he's a versatile forward who blends explosiveness, positional flexibility, and clinical finishing. So there has been reports that Brentford are happy to sell if they can bring in a replacement. So I can see a domino effect happening once Benjamin Šeško makes his mind up. So getting back to Yoane Wissa, he's got pace, rapid acceleration. He's actually deceivingly strong, which makes him a threat in behind and in one-on-one duels. When it comes to ball carrying, he's more confident in open spaces than he is tight spaces. Now, this is where Yoane Wissa does his best work, just like Benjamin Šeško in the penalty area. He's sharp instincts in front of goal, often in the right place at the right time, excels at converting chances with minimal touches. He's got excellent sharp movement and quick reactions. He scores volleys, rebounds, near post finishes, deflections, first time finishes. He's that type of striker inside the penalty box. So he acts like an instinctive poacher. Positional awareness. Most effective when he's occupying the left channel, drifting centrally to shoot or combine with teammates. Now again, keep that in mind. But again, I want to point out, Yoane Wissa is not a natural playmaker, not a natural creator, so you would need creativity from a number 10, or wide areas, or a deep line passer. So when you break it down between the two, you can see that they do offer different things, but in similar ways, if that makes sense. So there is some complementary traits, but there are also some compromising that needs to be had if they were to play as a duo. So what I mean by Šeško offers verticality, aerial dominance, and powerful stretching running style, whereas Wissa excels in chaos moments, acceleration, and he's unpredictable from movement from wide areas and inside channels. So together, the way I would look at this is if we played a 4-4-2, for example, together they could form form a press and pounce duo where Benjamin Šeško is stretching the back line. Yoane Wissa is being that pouncer, picking up rebounds, picking up loose balls, but also using his movement to get in behind. Now, when it comes to movement, let's break it down individually. Benjamin Šeško uses double movements to drop deep first and then spin in behind, whereas Yoane Wissa loves blindside runs, acting more instinctively, thrives in broken play, and that's what I'm talking about. Benjamin Šeško can be almost your focal point, but Yoane Wissa can thrive on broken play. So Yoane Wissa's movement is more reactive than it is calculated. Benjamin Šeško and Gonçalo Ramos, for example, movement is a lot more calculated. So when it comes to finishing, Benjamin Šeško is more powerful. We all know one of his trademark finishes is his excellent and powerful ball striking, but he's a lot more zonal dominant and he's a lot more aggressive in the box. Whereas Yoane Wissa brings more of an opportunistic style. He scores off deflections, rebounds, broken play, and he's more versatile in shot angles. So when it comes to the positional sense, both inside and outside the box, and we're going to be breaking it down, I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. Benjamin Šeško's average position is high but centrally. Yoane Wissa is a little bit more fluid, but in truth, they both occupy similar areas, but in different ways. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. Does Eddie Howe want somebody like Benjamin Šeško to partner Yoane Wissa? And if you look at this, last season, the touches, where they made the most touches was in pretty much the exact same place. Yoane Wissa made 14 touches in that area. Benjamin Šeško made 16 touches in that area. So will they just get in each other's way? Is that what's going to happen? Because I spoke yesterday about Benjamin Šeško slightly tweaking his style from his first season at RB Leipzig to his second season. So what happened in his first season, he was acting more of a goal machine. So the majority of his touches were in the penalty area. In the second season, he was a lot more involved in the play. He got involved in the build-up play. He had a lot more touches outside the penalty area, but less inside the penalty area. Now, that could be down to RB Leipzig's style of play because they didn't have a great season. So naturally, when a centre-forward doesn't get service, he gets frustrated, and then he goes and tries to receive the ball. That's what tends to happen when they don't get any service. When they are getting service, they're happy, not get involved, just get in the penalty area and just finish off chances. I personally think that's where Benjamin Šeško is at his best. Of course, there will be times where he gets involved in play, but I want him inside the penalty area. I also want Yoane Wissa inside the penalty area. But as you can see, they occupy very, very similar positions. So would they just get into each other's way? And this is what I was talking about, using that press and pounce duo style, but also one of them would have to compromise a little bit. So the way I would do it, and this sounds obvious without saying, Benjamin Šeško is the one that pins back defenses, stretches defenses, and Yoane Wissa is the one that picks up the loose balls, picks up the rebound to maybe play the ball out wide, and then they both get in the penalty area. Because the more people you have in the penalty area, the more likely you are to score. Now, one thing I did think about is they're both not natural creators. You look at their statistics and they don't create very much for teammates or each other. Across the 4 seasons, each of them have only had 11 assists in the league, so they're not natural creators. In fact, Bryan Mbeumo finished with the most goal creating actions last season with 20, so that showed that Bryan Mbeumo created a lot of opportunities for Yoane Wissa. So that got us diving into statistics a little bit deeper, and I think to service Benjamin Šeško and Yoane Wissa, one, you need to play many through balls because they're both like getting in behind, stretching defenses, and they've both got excellent timing with the movement. And secondly, you need to provide crosses in the penalty area. Yoane Wissa has excellent ability of being in the right place at the right time, but Benjamin Šeško has that profile where he can really attack crosses aggressively. So I looked into Newcastle's style, and they actually played the 5th most crosses across the Premier League last season with 105, which was actually more than what Brentford played. Brentford only had 674 crosses, but funnily enough, Bryan Mbeumo actually finished with the most crosses in the Premier League last season with 202. But who else is on that list? Anthony Elanga, who finished 4th with 185. Remember what I said about profiles and partnerships create a successful team? With Anthony Elanga's desire and willingness to put crosses in, Yoane Wissa and Benjamin Šeško could really feast. Now, one other player I think is so underrated with his creativity is Bruno. He finished 6th for goal creating actions last season with 18, and he also finished 7th for shot creating actions with 133. Now, Newcastle actually finished 6th for through balls last season. So when it comes to looking to put your centre forward in and provide service for your centre forward, I've got absolutely no worries about Newcastle United. But what I will say is if we do take Bruno out of our team or change our structure, we need to get our creativity from elsewhere because Bruno is supplying a lot of our creativity. So if we're looking to bring in a midfielder that can replace and step in for when is needed, when Bruno's injured or suspended or needs a rest, it needs to be a midfielder with creativity because you're not going to get much creativity from Benjamin Šeško or Yoane Wissa. There was also a rumour that came out yesterday that Newcastle United are eyeing up Gonçalo Ramos if Benjamin Šeško does not want to come. Now, this is what I like about Newcastle United. Planning ahead, making sure you've got alternatives in case you miss out on your option. We haven't done that across this summer. This is what I've been saying. You don't need to just speak to one striker. Go and speak to multiple strikers. So then you've got options. But it also makes that striker thing better make up my mind quickly. Otherwise, they're going to go to him. But let's quickly look upon what Gonçalo Ramos would bring. Let's look at these statistics first of all. Now, I've done it from his first full season. He started his career probably 2020, but he only made a handful of games. Like, I'm talking like 4 games for Benfica that season. So I've just done it across the last 4 seasons. 2021-22 was his big season where he really started games. 17 games, 7 goals, 1 assist. 2022-23, 30 games, 19 goals, 2 assists. 2023-24, 16 starts, 11 goals, 1 assist. And then last season he had 12 starts, 10 goals, 3 assists. That's all his league assists. But as you can see, a nice variation. 29 goals with his right foot, 10 goals with his left foot, and 8 with his head. Obviously, it goes without saying the first 2 seasons were Benfica, the second 2 seasons were PSG. Right, so what's his style of play? What would he bring? Well, he's a multi-phase striker. He's dangerous in transitions, believe it or not. He's reliable in the build-up, but he's lethal inside the box, and I think that's his key strength. So key strength, finishing. This is one of his big and best qualities coupled with his movement. Clinical finisher, he's composed under pressure, and he's a scorer of all types of goals. Deadly between the posts, and we're going to be breaking that down. He's a complete poacher despite his size. So his movement, this is one of my favorite things about Gonçalo Ramos. What I will say is Gonçalo Ramos doesn't have the explosive pace of a Yoane Wissa or a Kylian Mbappe, but he's very intelligent. His movement is so decisive and intelligent. It's excellent. So he comes with sharp off-ball runs, especially into half spaces and blindside channels. His ability to disguise his runs with excellent timing is so good. It's one of his key strengths. I would say his lingo play and his dribbling is quite underrated. Look, he's not a dribbler where you'll get on the ball and go on a mazy run and beat 10 or 11 Everton players like Alexander Isak did. He's not that type of dribbler. Look, he will get on the ball. He will lingo play. He's quite underrated when it comes to creating for his teammates, and we're going to be looking at that as well. But one thing I will say, over his career at Benfica and PSG, he hasn't been given the responsibility to get involved in play. His responsibility has been to get on the end of attack. So what I mean by that is finishing moves. So all his coaches told him to do is make sure you're in that penalty area. Make sure you are finishing those chances. I don't want you outside in wide areas, or that's not what his role was at Benfica or PSG. Can he do that? Yes, he can link up play. Does he excel at it? Probably not. He's probably better between the posts. And that shows in his statistics. Of his open play shots, only 9% saw him involved in the build-up on that move. So when it comes to when his shots happen and he's getting involved in the build-up, that only happens 9% of the time. So he very rarely gets involved in the build-up, and I think that's down to the manager's instructions more than the willingness. So it goes without saying he's not a direct replacement for Alexander Isak. He's more of a traditional striker, more of a focal point, efficient but tactically disciplined and less dynamic. So he's a true 6-box predator, but that all comes down to the service that he needs to receive and if it suits his style. If you give him the service, Gonçalo Ramos has proved that he can feast. Now, don't forget those statistics about the crossing, the through balls that I've just hit you with. So that's proven that Newcastle United can serve strikers. So although he won't get involved in the play as much as Alexander Isak, we can create in many different ways is what I'm trying to say. So by having a box presence instead of a complete forward, it could actually suit the way we play. So when I'm talking about box location and getting in the penalty area, these were these shot actions at PSG last season, and as you can see in between those posts, it is absolutely lovely. Now, we underperformed his XG. He was meant to score 13 goals, he only scored 10, but the majority of those games he came on as a substitute, and it's very difficult just to get into the rhythm of the game when you're coming on as a substitute. So I do expect those to go up. Now, one thing I will say, there are a lot of big circles that are not filled in. That's not very pleasing. So what I would be, if I was Eddie Howe, I'd be looking at this thing, and Gonçalo Ramos is actually one of the best at getting into good positions. That is one of his biggest qualities, just running off the last man of defense, running in behind, moving into 5 yards of space just by a quick burst of acceleration. That's one of his biggest and best traits. Now, where he does need to improve is just these shot selections. If he improves these shot selections instead of his shot locations, man, he's going to be dangerous. Because as you can see, his shot locations are very centrally. They're in between the penalty area and the 6-yard box. It is very pleasing to look at. Because ideally, those are the positions where you want your centre forward to be. Because that's where he's most likely going to score his goals. But even if you look at his last season at Benfica, where he scored 19 goals, he has a lot of actions inside the box. I often see I want my striker to have a lot of shots per 19. I want him to touch the ball as many times as possible in the penalty area. I don't want my striker in wide areas when we're on the counter attack. Not often. I want him inside the post because that's where you're going to score your goal. But as you can see, he gets into good positions and he's always an option for a man in possession. And that's shown in his heat map at PSG as well. Look at where his most touches come from. In between the penalty spot and the 6-yard box. Okay, you can sit there and say PSG are the best side in their league. Benfica are one of the most dominant sides in their league. So naturally, he's going to get a lot of service. And you're right in thinking that, because at Newcastle United, he would have to get involved in the play a little bit more than what he did at PSG and Benfica. But remember when I said his creativity is a little bit more underrated than people say? And this is why, because if you look at his shot creating actions in comparison to Benjamin Šeško, despite him playing less minutes, he's actually providing a lot more for his teammates. When it comes to assists, he's providing more. When it comes to expected assists, he's providing more than what Benjamin Šeško brings. Now, I'm not saying he's a better player than Benjamin Šeško. I'm just saying he was given a different responsibility than what he's actually capable of at Benfica and PSG. Now, again, Gonçalo Ramos is not a natural creator. He hasn't got those playmaking instincts. But when it comes to just bringing others into play, he is actually very good at it. So, guys, I actually could go into far more detail than what I have. But that's just a quick outlook on Benjamin Šeško, Yoane Wissa, and Gonçalo Ramos, and what they would bring and where they really excel and where the underrated qualities are and where the weaknesses are. I would say none of them are natural creators, so you've got to get your creativity from elsewhere. But I want to hear your thoughts. Would you be happy with 2 out of those 3? Would you be happy with 1 out of those 3? Who would be your preferred choice out of those 3? Let me know in the comments below. But as usual, if you've enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and until next time, stay positive, because deals will get done, and likely Benjamin Šeško will know about him over the next 24 hours, and that will just have a domino effect on what Isak does, what Yoane Wissa does, etc. But I can't wait. Let me know your thoughts in the below. Thank you again for watching and enjoy your day with the lads.